Welcome back to SoCal with Val. Today's episode is incredibly special as we have the privilege of sitting down with one of California's most distinguished hospitality figures, Jonathan Rosenson. Jonathan is a seasoned restaurateur, a sommelier, a hospitality executive known for his incredible work managing boutique hotels like Mirabelle Inn in Solvang, Chateau de Sureau in Oakhurst, the mansion on Sutter in San Francisco. He's also behind the renowned fine dining establishments First and Oak and the Elderberry House, both of which have earned prestigious accolades. In addition to his ongoing ventures, Jonathan has now recently added something truly exciting to his repertoire, and that of him and his family, the Mulholland in Calabasas, a brand new restaurant that promises to redefine dining in that area. We've heard great things about it. But let's not forget that Jonathan is also the creative mind and the proprietor of Coquiclo Estate Vineyard, a certified organic winery in the Santa Ynez Valley. His passion for food, wine, and exceptional guest experiences has definitely made him a prominent figure in California's culinary and hospitality scenes. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today. It is truly an honor to have you here on SoCal with Val.
Thanks, Val. What an introduction.
But I'm sure it's all well deserved. I think it's fair to say, from what I've heard and read, that your story begins actually a long time ago. And your story really begins with your dad. And that seems pretty touching. So tell us a little bit about him and his journey here, how he got here, and what he did once he arrived here, how that shaped you.
Sure. Yeah, I've always admired him. He was a larger than life person. And, I admired all the hard work and success that he had throughout his career. And, he immigrated to this country in the 1950s on the Queen Mary. And
Wow.
and they're all World War II survivors. So it was just incredible that they were able to get to France. He grew up in France, and then in the 50s came over on the Queen Mary, and they settled in Brooklyn. And his childhood, he was always like hungry to learn. He put himself through school.
Wow.
He tells a story of having to borrow money from my mom to pay for her wedding ring. He told her he was paying for books, but he was really getting her engagement ring.
Oh,
So it's just, it's this like very like it's like sort of like that immigrant's tale where you feel like the American dream could kind of be attainable. And so he moved in the 70s to California for opportunity, and he started in healthcare, and he made a big splash in the retirement home community. And
wow.
from there, he started. He found a partner, and that they brought him in to help them build their organization. And we ended up at the Sky Room in Long Beach because the building, the Breakers, was a retirement community. And so,
I guess I didn't realize that. I mean, that really goes back a long way.
yeah, for sure. So I was probably 13 going to the restaurant, and the Sky Room had a live music and a dance
Yeah.
floor, and a bar, and it was just like a really high energy place. And I remember going there and just feeling the excitement and being really like enamored by it. And as I went through high school, I just kind of knew that I was going to work with him and continue that legacy that he started here. And so I got my economics degree, and I came back, and I started working with him, and I started at the Sky Room. And then that's when he encouraged me to become a sommelier. And so when I was 22, I entered a program. We ended up taking over the wine cask in Santa Barbara. It had a Grand Award wine list. And so there was a wine shop, wine bar, fine dining restaurant. And I really was experienced, like I really was, I met winemakers. I met chefs that cooked in Michelin star restaurants. I mean, it was really like an exceptional place to like foster such a growing knowledge. So it
You
was
must have just been like, starstruck every day.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of interesting, whether it was celebrities or food critics coming through there. It was definitely a fun time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so your dad and I was around you then, but I didn't remember that the Breakers was a retirement home. That's a pretty amazing story. And your dad was one of the owners?
Yeah, so you would have never known from the
No,
outside of the building and
no.
from the Sky Room. So it was the only fine dining restaurant in a retirement community in the whole nation. And he got a special pardon from the state of California. So when he took over the property, the restaurant was just kind of abandoned. And so he sort of had this dream to recreate that Art Deco 20s supper club. And yeah, he was a visionary. He put that together, and um, from 97 to 2017, we ran it. And
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a like really high energy restaurant. It was sort of that bygone era where people would get dressed up and go out for a nice dinner, and there'd be entertainment, and you wouldn't be on your phone. You would be
Yeah,
engaged with the
of course,
experience.
yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
had music also, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
There was a live band. I had regulars that came every week and danced. We had the Dancing of the Star. All the instructors from Dancing of the Stars would bring their students and come, because it's one thing to learn in a ballroom, but to come and actually have like practical, like a place to do it is more fun, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's a great story. But tell us more about your dad's time in Long Beach. I've heard that he had a sentimental attraction to something
Yeah.
there. Tell us
Well,
about it.
so you're overlooking the Queen Mary, and that was the ship that he immigrated on when he was 9 years old. And he tells the story of when they saw land for the first time in New York at the Statue of Liberty, like everyone just started crying, and it was just like a really joyous moment, and it was an opportunity for them to do something different and to make a new home. While France was nice, they had cousins there. That's how they got there from Poland to France. But it just wasn't their home, right? So they had a new opportunity, and the United States just felt like this hope for them.
And did he come to Long Beach before the Queen Mary
Uh,
arrived?
yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure when the Queen Mary arrived, but he was in Cal. He moved to California in the 70s.
Yeah, it was about the same time. I'm thinking that it arrived in the early 70s. I don't remember exactly how early, but
Sure.
that must have been really emotional for him to think about being there and those when he was so young and remember those times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember we went to the Queen Mary, we toured it, we had brunch there. I mean, it was just one of those, we took my grandparents there. So it's just one of those things to have that piece of history still existing.
Yeah, and
Um,
right there with him.
yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. So you started at the Sky Room. So tell me what happened after that.
Yeah. So so my dad was making a shift from healthcare to hospitality. I think he just caught the wine bug. He fell in love with it. I think the excitement, and so we
And it's
started
all
kind of.
serving people, but much different.
It's different. Yeah, exactly. So he fell in love with that, and so that's when the next property we took over was the Wine Cask, and that was up in Santa Barbara, a beautiful historic restaurant. My dad was like an art antique collector from the time he was a little boy. They didn't have a lot of money in France, but they could go to the museums for free on Sundays, and so every weekend my grandfather would take my dad to the Louvre. And
Oh,
so I think like that whole like Louis the 13th, 18th century art, like all of that, like probably really inspired him and really shaped some of his passions in life. So he always had this passion for like historic properties. And so the wine cask was historic. When we ran that, it was just a nice time. It was a different time, right? And then the '08 crash hit. So that was hard on restaurants. Restaurants we're like the beacon of a community, but we're only as good as how strong the community is. And
mhm.
oftentimes when things crash, it's hard to stay afloat during those times. So fortunately, we closed the wine cask, And, we're just picking up the pieces. I went back to the Sky Room. I was running the Sky Room probably from '09 to 2015. And then that's when we invested in wine country at the Mirabelle Inn. So we were making wine since 2006. So like when I said my dad caught the wine bug, he got out
He
of
really did,
the
right?
home business. Yeah, he was collecting wine, and then he decided, oh, you know what? Let's take over a vineyard and let's start producing wine ourselves. So yeah, really like he was a big dreamer and like a Renaissance man, right? He never stopped. He never stopped. He always was going.
And did you like that? Did you ever tell him you shouldn't do this, you should just slow down? Or did you always, were you so excited by that you just loved being around him?
It's like 50-50, right? Like the winery and the restaurants were very exciting and they were fun. And there were a lot of hard work. And I think that, while there were some things would have been nice to maybe just slow down and focus a bit, I also respected his vision and saw that he's been doing this for a long time and he's been able to be successful at it. And, he built up a well organized operation. So I was excited, I would say.
And you have two sisters, correct?
I have two older sisters. Yeah.
And are you the one, although I think they're involved in the Mulholland with you, but are you the one that really has that passion in your family?
I would say we all were lucky enough to grow up with that passion in the sense that because my dad grew up with nothing, and when he achieved something, we'd go on family vacations and we'd always go back and stop in France because he had this love, this like affinity and love for France.
Who doesn't love France and going to the Louvre?
Totally. So, he took us around the world. He took us around Europe. We would eat in nice restaurants. We learned about things. He taught us. We went to museums. I mean, so I think we all kind of took elements of that, and that's what shaped us in where we are today. And while, maybe my sisters were raising their families, I was there helping him execute a lot of these operations.
And I'm sure that now you don't regret any time you spent with him.
No, not at all. I have a lot of fond memories. Him and I just traveling, whether it was going to the restaurant show in Chicago or going back to France and going through Bordeaux and tasting wine, going to an expo. I mean, there was a lot of like food and wine and a lot of really fun and educational things too. It's when you're able to do something you're passionate about and you're able to go and visit places around the world that are doing what you're doing, it's priceless.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can, I've said this to Patrick, who we both know, and other people, is I certainly am not a sommelier. I'm certainly not a wine expert, but what fascinates me about wine isn't the red or the white. And I feel bad for people who actually miss out on knowing all that there really is to learn, like the who was the winemaker, what side of the hill was it were the grapes from, right? And Bordeaux, right bank or left bank. Listen to the guys at the wine exchange, and they're certainly experts on all of that. And there's so much more to wine than just red or white or even Pinot or Cab, right?
Totally.
It's so fascinating. I love it.
I like to say that wine is the universal language, right? Most people think it's mathematics, but like if I pour you a glass of wine, we don't need to have a conversation. We can just sit there. If you spoke Chinese and I spoke English, we could still enjoy it and tell you if it was good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can talk about, so the guys at the wine exchange, for example, send out an email every day about something. And they always say, Kyle always says at the end, or Tristan, and you need to have this. I'm like, okay, I will. But we like at our house, what we like to do is print out their commentary. And then when we drink it, then we can look at what they said about it and we can study it from that standpoint. So that's something we like to do at our house.
And some of the best vacations I've ever gone on have all been around wine regions. Or a winemaker has told me like, hey, you should go check out this place. And next minute we're going to Mallorca and having like an amazing trip. And so I think winemakers travel a lot and they like food and they love people and experiences. And I feel like they're really great. They would make if they failed at making wine, they would make as a good travel agent.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So that's one of the things that happened when this radio station called me and said, we would like a show on Friday afternoons for people that are getting ready to leave town. And I happen to have a vacation rental management company. So they said, we thought of you, Valerie. So would you do it? I said, gosh, yeah, I mean, sure. What can I talk about? They said, it's your show. I said, done. So I have a sub name called Vino Villas and Vacations.
Yeah.
So that's our subtopic for our show. So you're certainly the perfect guy because you fit all of those things. Or you have wine, you have villas, you have vacations, you're everything. So tell me what happened when you did you sell the Breakers building then?
Yeah, so in 2017 we sold the building, and it's really funny. In 2007, we went on a trip looking at Fairmont hotels up in Canada. My dad wanted to turn the Breakers back into a hotel, and he wanted to fly the Fairmont flag. And for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. The Fairmont, maybe whether they weren't interested or they were doing other projects, and it just never went to the next level.
Never came together, huh?
And we sold it to the group Pacific Six, which is one of the sons of Molina Healthcare and five others. And they've been reconverting the building back into a hotel, and it just opened, a few months ago, and it's now a Fairmont hotel.
Oh, it is. I haven't been there.
It is a Fairmont hotel. It's fortuitous that it is. Like, it's just,
And that's just pure coincidence.
it's pure coincidence.
Like your dad didn't sell it to them that they had to make it a Fairmont.
No. And that just kind of goes back to like the visionary, right? Fairmonts are most of them are in historic, beautiful properties.
Yes, they are.
And that the Breakers is, it's gem of Long Beach. And now that it's back as a hotel and the restaurant, I mean, the whole building went through, I don't know, 100 million, maybe plus of renovations. So
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back and check it out. So
yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd been back yet, but you haven't.
I haven't yet. I reached out to the general manager because I used to live under the Sky Room. I lived on the 12th floor underneath the Sky Room, and so I basically lived at work. But it was like a really fun. I was in my 20s, and it was an exciting time. And
right down there in the heart of Long Beach, right there by the water, the boats, and it
was amazing. And so and I would love to like get the like full tour. Like I'd love to, there's boilers there from the 1930s where you would shovel. There was a passageway where coal would be shoveled down, and there's all the old, like there's a lot of, if you look around, you'll see like the call boxes that, they're not wired electrically. They're just like I don't even know what the apparatus is, but it's very interesting building.
So they would I would think, to have you tour them through and show them all of those things.
Yeah. There's tunnels that go underground from there too. I mean, so I would make it like maybe like 30 feet into the tunnel, and it would be pitch black, and I'd be like, you know what, this doesn't feel like a smart idea. Maybe we had a little bit too much tequila, and we would venture back, and I wouldn't want to get stuck underground.
Probably not a bad idea. So then you had already kind of left Long Beach by going to the wine cast, going to Santa Barbara, right?
So Santa Barbara was back in like 2007, 2008. So my dad's had a few exoduses from healthcare, and one was in 2006. One was in like 2017, 2015, 2017. And so some of those have turned into our hotels, right? So in 2017, we took over Chateau du Sureau, which is like a beautiful Relais and Chateau property right by Yosemite near Bass Lake. And then a little bit later, we took over the mansion on Sutter, which is a historic mansion. It's an old Victorian from 1881. It survived the earthquake and fires. It was someone's personal residence called the Payne family mansion, and they made all their money in the silver rush, and they built this beautiful 20,000 square foot Victorian mansion. And over the years, it's been multiple different things, but I think the best use is a small boutique hotel. There's room for a restaurant below. When we took it over in 2018, we restored it. We painted all the ceiling. We gold leaf and silver leafed all the ceilings and brought the wood back. Varnished all the wood and just gave it like a really beautiful facelift. And the bones are incredible, so there wasn't much you needed to do, but it's a really exquisite property.
There's some touch up. So let's go back to the winery. The grapes. Let's talk about your grapes. You bought a winery, you started growing grapes.
Yeah,
did you sell them or what did you do with them?
So in 2005, we bought, it was called Mission Estates. And it was right below the Mission in San Ynez. And so my dad said, you know what, we'll call it Mission Estates, no problem. It's all about the area. And when we filed for our license, we got a cease and desist letter from a very powerful chateau in Bordeaux called La Mission Chateau Haut-Brion. So Haut-Brion is one of the first growths.
Right.
Sorry, I'm in the restaurant, so I hope that noise isn't too bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, I don't hear anything.
And so it was a first growth of Bordeaux, and we decided, you know what, we don't need to fight one of the most powerful houses. We'll change the name. And so my dad always remembered his childhood in France and this love affair with French wine and French food. And so coquelicot is the flower. It's the French red poppy. And so that's what the label has been called. Yeah, the coquelicot flower, And we decided.
And anybody who spells that correct or who pronounces it correctly must get a free glass of wine or something. Huh?
Right. We have some funny videos of people in the tasting room after a few glasses trying to pronounce it. It's pretty comical. But yeah, so we turned the vineyard organic and we applied for our certification. And so it's certified organic. And we say we like to make natural wine in the sense that Europe's been making natural wine for hundreds of years. It's, don't use pesticides, don't use herbicides. Let's do the winemaking in the vineyard and not manipulate the wine in the vineyard, in the winery, right? So, there's over 72 chemicals you can add to wine.
So let's take a break here in that. Let's tell our listeners and our viewers what classifies a wine as an organic wine.
Sure. Okay. So organic wines, in order for your vineyard to be organic, you need to not be spraying pesticides and herbicides. Like Roundup is a pesticide, right? And so there's other ways to deal with pests, or there's other ways to just allow nature to be as one, right? And so we don't necessarily do biodynamic farming, but the idea is like, if you're in a forest, you don't go to the forest and start pulling the weeds out of the forest. The forest does it. The forest will correct itself on its own, right? Trees will grow, fires will start. You don't get rid of one insect because it's eating the leaf here. Like everything has a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
And in the soil, you have microorganisms and everything adds elements to what you're doing, right? To the growing process, to the whole ecology of the farm. And so if you start spraying your vineyards with really strong chemicals, you're going to change and you're going to destroy all those microorganisms.
Definitely.
And, the French call it terroir, right? It's the soil, it's the aspect of how you grow it, it's the climate. And so your soil is part of your terroir. And if you disrupt all those microorganisms, you're going to change your grapes in many ways.
Yeah, no question.
And then we don't want to put harmful chemicals. Wine is supposed to be enjoyable, celebratory. It shouldn't be something that I have to worry about. Are you ingesting chemicals that you shouldn't be ingesting?
No.
And that's the difference between conventional farming and organic farming. And don't get me wrong, the reason why you don't see we see organic farming, but the reason why you see conventional farming is organic farming can cost 30 to 50% more than conventional farming. So from an economic standpoint, it's not a lucrative business, so to speak.
And why does it cost more?
Because it's more labor, right? Everything's done by hand. you want to get rid of the
Oh,
weeds, you're going to do it by hand. You're
oh,
going
I
to get
see.
a machine and go out, and it's called a Clemens, and it's like a lawnmower for weeds, and you go out there and it has a sensor that makes it where it doesn't hit the vines, and you got to do that by hand. So it's manpower, woman power.
Yeah, absolutely for both. And I think I know the answer to this, but then the question would be, so do you taste the difference? But I think with wine, every little thing tastes different with wine, right?
Totally. There's nuance to wine. And I'll tell you what, like, maybe if I was tasting organic grapes versus non-organic grapes, maybe I'm not going to fully taste 100% of the difference between the two, but at least I know that I didn't have to use chemicals on those, and then I know that they won't be harmful to the people drinking it. But so that's growing organic, right? And then when you make natural wine, and the reason why I use the word natural wine, and I don't think we should be scared of that term. Sometimes people think of it like, oh, the wine's going to be very flawed. Um, that like if you make wine correctly and you pick on your acid levels and you make sure your pH of the grapes are in a good place, like, so we do use some science to navigate where the grapes are. So acidity and pH are two things that go hand in hand. As one goes up, one goes low. Like as acid rises, pH drops, and the pH is important for preserving wine naturally, right? Instead of having to add preservatives to wine. And so I feel like when people say, oh, I go to Europe and I drink wine, I can drink bottles of it and I don't get hungover, I don't feel bad. It's because there's no chemicals in those wines. A lot of those
Absolutely.
wines,
Yeah.
You
That's the
ask
same as eating food in France, right?
same as you ask the farmer, when his neighbor starts to pick grapes and he knows his neighbor makes good wine, then he starts to pick grapes. Like they're not often doing as much like they're not using technology and science often at the level of like maybe we do in the States. So then when you're making the wine, you're not adding chemicals. Like you can add like 72 different chemicals to the wine, and you can manipulate the wine, and you can add tannins, you can add acidity, you can make it softer, you can make it more, there's so many things you can do. And so for me, when you taste wine like that, I kind of call them Frankenstein wines, where you're just like piecemealing this thing that you're trying to, maybe you're searching for scores or accolades or whatever it is. And I feel like you can taste that when people are doing too much to the wine. Once the wine gets in the winery, the majority of what we're doing is topping up the wine, making sure that the wine doesn't oxidize in barrel. And then when the wine starts to get reductive, so reductive means that sometimes you get that like that egg smell, like sulfur smell sort of. And so that's like a note when we know that we need to take we need to rack the wine. So that means you take wine from one barrel and you move it into a clean barrel, and what's left over is like the sediment, it's the lees. And if it spends too much time on the lees, the wine could be reductive. And so that's when we know, okay, let's take it off, let's rack that wine, put it into new barrels, and then plug it back up, and then we'll clean out the old barrels. We clean it with like citric acid, which is not harmful at all.
And then you're able to reuse them.
The barrels? Oh yeah, yeah. So the type of wine that we make, we're not typically making. So our whites are like refreshing, they're crisp, they're high in acid, and the reds we're making are soft and velvety. And so with the reds, we use French oak, and we use predominantly neutral French oak. So that means the barrel's been used enough where you're not going to have flavors of oak. And so maybe it's like 3 or 4 times they've been used. So every season that they get used, like a bit of that wood strips off of it.
Sure.
And so maybe like we make some reserve wines, and maybe we'll pick 5 of our favorite barrels, and we'll do one of those barrels in new oak and the other 4. So it's about 20% new oak for those. And those are wines that we're going to age a little longer, because remember, so oak has tannins. And tannins are what dry out your mouth. And we're drinking Cabernet, right? Let's say, and Cabernet has really aggressive, strong tannins. So you're taking oak tannins and wine tannins, you're mixing them together, and the wine is just like super astringent. It's like biting into an unripe persimmon. And so those wines, when you bottle them, they need time in bottle to soften and have all the cell walls break down and the tannins not so astringent. So I'm not that patient. I don't think most people are that patient. So why add the oak tannins if we're going to drink the wine within 5 years of it being bottled? So we like to make a lot of our reds like soft, juicy, easy to drink, a little bit lower in alcohol. We use like acidity and pH to help preserve our wines.
And are your wines made from grapes that you raise? I mean, you grow those grapes. You don't buy any other grapes to make your wine with?
Like 98% of the wine that we make is from grapes that we grow. And so Coquelicot, to give you like a depth of scale, the whole property itself is just shy of 100 acres. And we have about 58 acres planted with 13 different varietals. With 13 varietals, that means we make probably 30 different wines. I feel like we're always adding a SKU each year, like, oh, let's try this out.
Let's try it. Yeah, sure. Of course
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. That's the fun part. A little bit of experimentation, matched with, we've been doing it long enough. So we've been making wine since 06. What is that? It's almost 20 years 19 years. Am I doing math right?
And your bottles are labeled Coquelicot Estate Vineyard?
Yes, correct. Coquelicot Estate, and you'll see all the red poppies on it. And they always say made with organic grapes on the front label.
How much competition is there in the organic market? Are you one of 5,000, or even how do other people do it?
I couldn't give you the exact number, but I think when I was studying to be a sommelier, I think this was the statistic that I was given. The wine that we make, as far as like independent small production wine, only represents about 10% of the wine produced in the world or the United States, let's say. The other 90% is attributed to companies like Constellation Wine Brands, Gallo, and so forth. And I think the stat goes, Gallo makes enough wine for California to be the 4th largest producing wine region in the world.
Wow.
So it's like a jockeying position between France, Spain, and Italy for 1, 2, 3, depending on the year. I think Spain has been making more. And then California comes in at 4 specifically because of Gallo. Wow. So there's a lot of bulk wine out there, which is fine. Look, everything serves.
But they bought a lot of wineries at a certain point, didn't they? Start acquiring others.
It's a little bit of everything, right? You're sort of just acquiring juice from lots. There was a time where we sold some of our juice, and some bigger companies would absorb it because they're looking for 100 tons of Merlot or Cab or whatever it is.
Sure.
And some of them they would put them under an organic label too. Like some of those companies do make an organic label as well. But like when you're making things at such scale, it's you're really at that point, it becomes a chemistry equation. You're trying to make sure everything is at this level to homogenize it, to make it all taste the same year in after year, because you're building this brand. And that's just kind of not what wine is. Wine changes, it evolves. Every year it's different. The excitement is to taste that producer's next vintage and ride the wave, right? Because every year there might be years that are better than other years. It's natural to have that.
And what's the tasting range of your wines? Are they good for 5 years, 20 years? Should they be consumed in 3 years?
Well, so it comes down to a few things, right? Like what's preserving the wine, acidity, pH, tannins preserve wine. So that's why like a lot of red wine can age longer. The tannins come from the skins, the seeds, and the stems. While white wine is typically like you pick it, you press it, and you separate the skins, seeds, and stems. Red wine, you ferment on the skins, sometimes on the stems too, but you definitely, all the color comes from the skins. So, I've had wines going back to our first vintages, 06, 07. They were still very good. Yeah.
Fun.
I opened a 2011 Bordeaux blend, and it was delicious. It was still drinking nicely. So,
There you go.
yeah, I think ageability is 5 to 20 years for sure.
Well, that's good to know. We'll have to try that here. So we've talked about your wines a little bit, and I really hope that you'll come back again because we have too much to talk about for just one episode. But let's talk about your time in the restaurant industry.
Sure.
How did that start?
Yeah.
You
So
started, was it Back to the Sky?
100%. The Sky Room was the incubator, and the experiences that I had with my dad opened up my eyes to like what are the possibilities. And we visited many Michelin star restaurants. We had meals that were performances and so beautifully orchestrated that we really fell in love with this industry and what it can be done. And so the restaurant that we opened up in Calabasas, every one of our projects has always been like rooted in fine dining. And I love fine dining. I think it's amazing. But when we came up with the idea of this restaurant, the idea was accessibility, right? Fine dining, maybe it's once a year, maybe it's once every few years, or maybe for some the lucky ones, it's once a month, but it's not a meal you can eat on a daily basis. And so we wanted to create a restaurant that felt like your neighborhood gem restaurant that made everything from scratch, that was delicious, that was fresh, that was seasonal, that focused on seafood and vegetables, and also like sourcing really great quality products, and so we brought on a chef that came out of a 3 Michelin star restaurant out of New York City. He was part of the Make It Nice group, which is 11 Madison Park. He moved to LA to open up the Nomad Hotel. Unfortunately, the Nomad did not make it. And
he happened to be available and you found him, right?
Yeah, we found him. Yeah, after he left Curtis Stone after the pandemic, and we found him. And so he's been our culinary director. He oversees all 3 of our restaurants. And his counterpart, so his name is Chef Chris Flint, and his counterpart is Michelle Carter. She worked in Boston at some really famous restaurants. James Beard Award-winning chef. Of course, at the moment, I'm neglecting. I'll remember this name.
You'll remember it as soon as it's called.
Yeah, of course.
It's okay.
But she worked at a really incredible restaurant out of Boston. So the 2 of them are at the helm here, and we created this really beautiful restaurant for the neighborhood, Calabasas, the San Fernando Valley. I feel like, in a world of strip malls and chain restaurants, our idea was, okay, how can we create something that cares about every little element, but without it being fine dining? So it's like all the elements that you would think about for fine dining, but in a casual, elegant setting, right? Almost like an oxymoron.
So if we come to the Mulholland, what will we see? What kind of a meal will we have?
Okay, so if you come here, we're going to give you the best meal. No.
I'm probably going to come there.
So we bake our own focaccia. So you're going to have to start with our focaccia.
I'll have to.
And so the focaccia it could come with pizza butter, which I say is my retirement plan, or it can come with cheese fondue if you're feeling naughty.
Cheese fondue. That sounds pretty
so it's a cheese fondue with red wine braised onions. It's amazing. It's a blend of a poisse and some potato puree, and it's out of this world. And then so we'll move to some vegetables. The chef makes these tempura mushrooms from maitake mushrooms with a nori aioli. That's incredible. We make an incredible Caesar salad with chicories. We also have a raw bar. You're going to want to get our scallop crudo or maybe our hamachi crudo. And then chef makes pastas in-house. We do some tortellinis. We do a cavatelli pasta. And then the signature entrees, I would say, is our chicken. I normally tell people, like, you don't go out to a restaurant to order chicken, but this is a special chicken. It takes 3 days to make. We source it from Petaluma. We take the egg meat, we cure it, we confit it in duck fat. We turn it into a jus. That takes about 3 days for that proper process. So when I say fine dining, that's what they would do in a fine dining restaurant.
Definitely.
And then the breast is brined, sous vide, and roasted crispy. So it's moist and delicious. And then I would say like our scallops, we do it with kind of like a Thai curry with carrots and forbidden
Oh,
rice, and it's like really, really delicious. Those are probably the two entrees that I haven't had the heart to change. But you
is
know,
the
we're
chicken
moving
and the Thai curry, the chicken?
the chicken just has the jus and then like the creamiest mashed potatoes you've ever had. Very like Joël Robuchon inspired.
And I happen to be a mashed potatoes girl. I was
Yeah.
born and raised in the Midwest. I gotta have it. Meat and
Yeah.
potatoes.
Yeah. But yeah, so like that's the type of meal. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be, I always find like layers of flavors, unexpected flavors, textures, all of that's so important. Kind of like in my mindset, like I like to look at a dish like almost like a triangle, like there's 3 points on it, and you have to hit all 3 points for it to really go over the top, and make you want to come back for another bite.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds pretty decadent. And I'm sure then there's desserts and wine to go along.
100%. So I think the house favorite dessert, it's a chocolate mousse with a passion fruit caramel inside the mousse.
Ooh.
And then it's got a passion fruit cremeux on top and passion fruit sorbet. There's just this, like, I love passion fruit, and I think when you mix it with chocolate, it's really fun. The other one would be probably our lemon curd. So we dip lemon curd into liquid shortbread, and then we freeze it to set it, and then we serve that with homemade ricotta ice cream. And that one's also, I don't think we've had the heart to take that off the menu. And the chef, because I'm gluten free, for my 40th birthday, they made me that, and they made it gluten free, and the recipe came out so good that you couldn't tell the difference, that we just make it gluten free now. So if you are gluten free and you want shortbread, lemon curd, I got you.
Well, you certainly have delved into two of the most challenging industries there are, which is food and hospitality. Those, and how do you keep I know everyone wants to know is how do you keep the quality and the passion alive in your dining establishments?
Well, I think it's important to inspire your team. I think it's important to lead by example. Um, Coming to work doesn't feel like work. We've fostered this culture and this community around us. And then it doesn't hurt to have a really good bottle of tequila behind the bar.
It doesn't. Or a few bottles of
But
wine,
yeah,
probably, either for
no,
those of us who aren't. Yeah.
when you're around passionate people, you're always pushing each other to do something exciting and fun. And so while I'm not a chef, I look at flavors the same way, like through the same lens. Like I think maybe in another world, if I could do both, like run a dining room, cook, and be the sommelier, or all three, I would do it. But you kind of have to allow others to do things, and the 3 Michelin star chef that works with us, Chef Chris, like we wouldn't have brought him on board if, like, I can't cook better than he can. But it's fun to like bounce ideas and flavors off of each other, and so I think that's exciting to me.
I'm sure that he probably comes to you with some ideas and says, I saw this, or I thought of this, or can I do this? And
Yeah,
ask your permission to do some fun and exciting things.
100%. We're sending each other like threads on Instagram back and forth. Look at this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I do that with my team from time to time.
Yeah.
So tell me, is it at this restaurant that I heard that you have an exciting bar there also?
Yes, I could not forget our bar program. So, don't you hate it when like you redid the house, but like, oh, you should have changed those old curtains, and you didn't change the curtains, and they just don't look right.
Yep.
The bar can't be the old curtains. They need to be exciting too. So if you've got good food and great service, your drinks have to match. We brought Chad Austin in. Chad was our bar manager. He has since moved on to another project, but he still consults with us. So he's still making all of our menus. And Chad is like, he's an almanac for spirits. He knows the flavor profiles of every spirit. It's incredible. how good his palate is, and he brings together like unexpected things, whether it's like bell pepper or tomato or saffron, or we have a pea cocktail, or white chocolate and peas. I mean, we like, and that's an homage to Jeremy Fox, and so like he's very tapped into the community. He's mixing nuances together. I have a cocktail called the Mulholland Drive. It is our signature gin martini. I challenge all of Los Angeles to a martini duel. I think this is the best martini in LA. I've had a lot of them, vodka or gin based. It's olive leaf gin that's been fat washed with avocado oil, yuzu gin, a blend of vermouths, basil eau de vie, shaken up. Actually, it's stirred with some basil oil, and it is the most nuanced, beautiful. Like even if you don't like gin, you'll then like have an appreciation, be like, oh my god, I should drink more gin because this is really interesting.
It sounds amazing, and I would love to. I need to come there. I need to
You
come.
have to, because now I put the challenge out there, so I
You
have to
have, you
live up
have,
to my
you have. I
expectations.
absolutely, and I do want to take a few minutes because again, I know hopefully you'll come back to us again, but talk to us about your hospitality. So you have three boutique hotels. Is that what you call them?
Yeah, they're
B&B, bed and breakfasts, or
yeah. I like the word boutique hotel because I don't
so
want
do
you to
I. I
like,
think
your weird aunt wakes up and cooks eggs for you in the morning and you're like tiptoeing around her house. That's the vibe I get with the like bed and breakfast. Maybe that's a bad vision, but they're all about 12 bedrooms on average. The Mirabelle has First and Oak. First and Oak is Michelin recognized. We do a 3-course or a 5-course tasting menu. Chef Chris oversees that menu. They do weddings and catering up in wine country. I mean, it's just this quaint little, like, in the town of Solvang, all the properties look like you're in Copenhagen, in Denmark. So
yes, they do.
it's just this cute little 4-story building. It's very intimate. We get a lot of like weddings that'll buy the whole place out and the whole family stays there, and that's really fun. And then especially when we're cooking their welcome reception and their wedding dinner, it's really like special to be a part of those celebrations with people, like these momentous life milestones. So I really love that. As I said, I was catering a wedding yesterday.
I
And
heard that. Yeah, tell us about it. Tell us what
yeah,
you do.
we were at the Sunstone Villa, and this couple wanted a very fine dining, very well put together, beautiful menu. And yeah, we went out there and we served this beautiful meal, and it's like overlooking the hills. And I think there was maybe like 10,000 flowers all over the place. I mean, it was gorgeous. I'll post some photos on our social media because
That would
it
be
was
great.
really
Yeah.
pretty. And then, up in Yosemite, I mean, that is a Chateau du Sureau is a 10-bedroom castle with a 2-bedroom villa, a fine dining restaurant, and a spa. And if you want to like go to Europe, but you don't want to hop on a 10-hour flight, or maybe it's a little too expensive, if you go there, the original owners from Austria, she went and hand sourced all the furniture, doors, fixtures, everything from Europe. You feel like you're in 100-year-old castle.
Oh
It's
gosh.
really gorgeous. It's really well put together. The service is so warm and just different. You're not going to find service quite like that. It's so personal. Our concierge team will set you up on tours to Yosemite, or if you want to go fly fishing or any other outdoor adventures. And then the restaurant, I mean, like, look, it's a sleepy town. You're going to
Yeah.
go hiking, or you're going to go out and do some nature elements, or go get a massage. And then your dinner is the show. And they do a beautiful 5-course tasting menu there that, like, we went out and our chef foraged wood bark from trees, and we glazed that ourselves. And the amuse bouche comes on a piece of wood that comes from the forest, and it's decorated with all the pine needles. And it's just like that comes and it sets the tone for like what that night's going to be like. And it's when dining is an experience, a show, just like a beautiful memory. And so they do a lot of events and weddings and anniversaries and celebrations, and it's just you feel like you're in a completely different place. You feel like you're in Europe for a minute, and it's like for me, it's like connecting with nature and getting off your phone. Like we need more of that, and this gives that opportunity for our guests.
That is amazing. So now I've found 3 places I need to visit for housing, for hospitality, and new restaurants and wine. So everybody on this call or who's been listening to this program today, this episode, we've certainly got you covered. So tell us, what are the trends? What's happening in dining? What's next for you? What is something you haven't done yet or you want to do?
Trends. Okay. So one thing I want to do here at the Mulholland, we do want to like kind of set up like a secret dinner club. So like I said, we're like fine dining incognito, but it's casual enough. Like there's a burger on the menu. Like we want people to come every week, and it shouldn't feel too heavy to do that. But once a month, we would love to do these really beautiful orchestrated, like 10-course tasting menus and just kind of flex that muscle a little bit with wine pairings and just like an exquisite experience. That would be fun. I think as far as like trends go, I see people doing mini cocktails. I think that's kind of fun where people don't want to drink as much, but they want to be able to taste through more cocktails. That could be kind of interesting. We're doing a mahjong night where groups will come and sit outside on our beautiful patio, and you come in as a team of 4 and they're playing mahjong.
I want to do that. I wanted to do that with someone here in Orange County, and now you've inspired me to go back to them and say they're doing that at the Mulholland.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, my sister got into it and they all have such a great time. So we're opening up to like 10 teams of 4. We're going to put a little buffet out there so they can in the middle take a break. So I love events.
I have friends who live in Newbury Park, so we're going to do that.
June 17th.
Have to do that.
And I love events. I love sharing new flavor profiles with people. So for me, it's always trying to turn people on to alternatives to like the conventionally farmed wine or the tequila that might have a lot of additives. So I really love to like show people like new, different things. So that's a lot of fun, like exciting events. That's going to be the trend for the next year for us.
So tell our viewers and our listeners who've loved this episode, how to find you if they wanted you to cater an event, or how to find you just to look at your history and look at all of the places that you manage and are involved with.
Sure. So you can find us at the Mulholland LA is our handle for Instagram, and mulholland.com is our restaurant in Calabasas. I feel like that's the easiest one to get to. And if you want to go up to Chateau du Sureau, same thing at Chateau du Sureau. And First and Oak is at First and Oak. So, and then Coquelicot. Yeah, all of our, just if you go find just our names, you'll find our handles pretty easily.
That's going to be a great, so many people I know are going to want to follow you. And what a great episode. We're so glad to have you on SoCal with Val. Of all the things that I pictured when I started this show, I knew these are the elements that I would have to have: our vino and our villas and our vacations. And you certainly, to some of us, you live the dream. You are what we all want to be. So thank you so much for being with us. And please say you'll come back, because we haven't even touched on some of the subjects.
Totally. Would love to come back. Thank you so much for your time today, Val.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your remarkable journey and your wisdom. Your passion for hospitality and wine and exceptional service is not only inspiring, but it's a true testament to your family, your dedication to excellence. It's been a real privilege to have you. So to all of our listeners and viewers, please follow him. Go to the Mulholland, go to all of his establishments. And thank you for tuning into SoCal with Val. We will see you next week with more stories, insights, and adventures from the heart of California. Until then, remember to embrace the journey and always live fully.